recording, I think. Does it say it's recording?
Not yet, no. Oh, there it is, yeah.
Okay. Right, so to start off, I'm just going to read you a little bit before we start so you know how to go about the interview. So I want to start by saying this is a safe space and I'm not here to judge you for your response to my questions. I am here to interview individuals so their voices are heard and awareness is spread. If at any point you feel uncomfortable, you can stop or pause the interview. If you don't wish to disclose or discuss a certain question, you're welcome to simply say pass and I'll move on to the next question. Before we start, I am going to advise a trigger warning as the last question I'm going to be interviewing you about is around your personal negative experiences within the LGBTQIA+ community. So there's a total of 13 questions. Is this okay with you?
Yeah.
Okay, right, so I'll start off. So question 1, what is your name?
My name is Rhi Kemp Davies. That's my full name. Rhi Kemp Davies.
And what is the date and time?
It's the 22nd of December and it's 3:47.
Thank you. And who is present?
Pardon?
Who is present for this interview?
Say that again.
Who's present?
Oh, who's present?
Yeah.
Are you? I feel like I'm doing a lie detector test though. Is me and you were present.
Thank you. And what is your relation to me?
I work in the course team on the course that you're on, and so I organise placements for students, and that's how we are in connection.
Yeah. And if you don't mind me asking, what is your age?
I'm 38.
And what is your present sexual identity?
My sexual identity is queer.
And what is your present gender identity?
It's non-binary.
Has your gender identity or sexual orientation affected your experience or experiences with employment opportunities?
No, I don't think so. Employment opportunities? No, not as far as I'm aware anyway.
No? Okay. And have you ever questioned your sexual or gender identity?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Very much so, yeah.
And in your opinion, what do you think of labels within the LGBTQIA+ community?
So my opinion is framed by the context in which we live in about the year not the fact that it's 2020, the year of the pandemic, but just where we are at this time and place in the UK. I think, personally, labels have been really helpful for me, but I know that this is a thing. I suppose it's not. I know it's not helpful for everyone, and that's fine. But personally, being able to, I suppose, when a person doesn't label themselves, it either means that they're in a place of privilege in which they don't have to, or that they feel lost, I suppose. And so I think labels are helpful for those that need it, helpful for those that are lost, helpful for those that don't feel like they have a community, and to learn more about themselves. I could say more about it. I don't know if that's enough for you or not.
Yeah, no, if you want to say more, you can say more.
Yeah. Because I provide trans awareness training for a lot of people, and it's usually the people who are in more privileged positions that challenge the idea of labels.
Yeah.
It's usually the white cis het middle class person who questions why everyone needs a label, kind of thing. And I know from that point of view, it's like, well, because of who you are, you've not had to put a label on yourself and you've had that freedom. But when you grow up in a society that doesn't really acknowledge you, then that's why a label can be helpful. And I tend to use the word box quite a bit. Like, okay, For me personally, had the term non-binary been around when I was a teenager, then I would have very happily put myself in that box and been much happier. And it wasn't until I was like in my early 30s that it really came to a head. And but then accepting a label also means that I accept that a binary exists. I'm getting a bit carried away now.
No, go for it.
But when it comes to gender identity, it took me so long to realise my gender, because I refused to believe that there was such typical women and typical men. But it was only through accepting that actually there is, that there is a gender binary, and there is femininity, there is masculinity, and it's only recognising other labels that I was able to put that label on myself. So, and I've got this really cool image of, it's like a drawing of somebody going, oh, label, and throwing it away. And then another person picking it up going, oh, what's this? Oh my gosh, this is mine, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I think it's great to be, if a label is helpful for a person, then why not? But again, at the beginning, I was talking about of this answer, talking about, okay, in this context right now, it's helpful. But I love the idea of in the future that no labels have to exist and that everyone is living equally, but we don't.
No.
And, I used to be one of those people who were like, of course, Black Lives Matter. Yeah, all lives matter. And, in the first movement a few years ago, I was made to realise that actually, no, it's important to see colour, because if you don't see a person's colour, you don't see the other rubbish they have to deal with. And, because this person's black, it means that they experience more oppression. So seeing a label actually helps you understand the wider context of what that person's living in.
Yeah, I feel like there's such a history behind labels as well, isn't there? Especially for each person.
Yeah, and how it's, as I said, it's so contextual.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Like that, labels there are some labels that made sense 100 years ago, 500 years ago, and some labels that make sense now that won't make any sense in the future.
No, and like it's interesting, like, because I've interviewed a couple of different people. So I interviewed my uncle who's gay, and he hates the word queer. Like he literally like he doesn't want me to use it around him, which I kind of respect, because like for him it's a really oppressive word. But for me, it's brought so much comfort. So like I'm gonna use it for myself. But around him, I try not to use it.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see like different people's opinions on labels.
Isn't it? And that's the thing, you understanding that his context is that you probably grew up being called a queer and things, and it was a very hurtful thing.
Now. Yeah, like he's nearly 70, so the history behind it for him is like, I don't know, really negative for him. Whereas as someone who's younger, it's such a positive thing for me. Especially because I didn't, like at the time, I didn't know where I fitted in with my sexuality. It was like a nice umbrella term for me to use, knowing that I wasn't heterosexual. So I thought, it's interesting.
And actually, I don't know if this might end up, answering another question, but for me, I generally fancy women and people who present more femininely. That's who I generally fancy. But because I'm non-binary, it's difficult. It's a bit like, well, I'm not heterosexual, so queer. And for me, queer is also political, and it's critical of the discourse, kind of thing. And so for me, it's more than just a sexuality. It's a way of thinking and a community.
Yeah, definitely. Right, so where are we? So question 11 now. As someone who is queer, do labels provide you with a source of comfort or pressure? I think you've kind of answered that.
No pressure. No, I suppose the only time I feel pressure is when people challenge me on it. So, for instance, maybe straight women who grew up around some men who were called queer when they were younger, for instance, or because I think the word queer creates some tension in some people, because they grew up in a time when it was a bad word, for instance. So I suppose, but then, sorry, you said pressure. What was the other word you said?
Do labels provide you with a source of comfort?
Comfort. So yeah, definitely. That's my community. Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice to know. And question 12. Can you tell me about a positive experience or experiences as being part of the LGBTQIA plus community?
Yeah, gosh, where do I start? When, I don't know, how old am I now? 2007, like 13 years ago. Oh my gosh. I keep forgetting that I'm not young. Well, I'm not old either, though. When I was living in London, I hung out with. I used to go to this place called Bar Whatever. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's quite popular in London, and it was whatever because you could be whatever you wanted to be when you were there. You could be whoever you were when you were there, and it was it's funny because this is before I realised that the term non-binary was about, but I found myself just in the company of so many genderqueer people, and I used to love going there on a Tuesday evening, and these really cool queer cabaret performances used to happen, and there was a proper sense of belonging and celebration, and kind of like being together and being strong together, and it was like it was that kind of attitude of, well, who would want to be straight when you can be queer in this kind of night. So that's one thing. But more recently, actually, interestingly, being part of the LGBTQIA community has offered me quite a few opportunities in my job where, like, for instance, I am an LGBT role model at the university. I'm one of the members of staff, and I'm the trans role model because apparently there's only one non-binary person that works in the university.
Oh.
That's not true, but I haven't met anyone else who's non-binary. But so being LGBTQIA, that gave me an opportunity. I suppose the university were like, oh, diversity, can we use you, please? And I was like, and the attention whore in me was like, yes, go on then. And so for the last 2-3 years, I've been quite happy doing that. But even more recently, I've just got myself my dream job because of my gender identity. So I'm going to be a psychosexual. Do you know I'm training to be a psychosexual therapist?
No, that's so cool. Look, my mate wants to do that.
Nice.
Yeah.
So
is it online? You're doing it?
It had to be this year, but last year it wasn't. At the beginning of this year it wasn't. So we used to go to Cambridge one weekend a month to do a lot of learning and lots of reading in between. But I'm just about to qualify, and the most amazing sexual health clinic in London, in Europe, we're looking for a trans or non-binary psychosexual therapist. So I applied for it and I got it.
Oh,
so
well done. Congratulations.
Thank you. So actually, being non-binary enabled me to apply for that kind of job and get the job. So yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. So, like, when I asked you earlier if it's prohibited you, do you feel like it's, in a way, you've got more opportunities?
Yeah, I do feel like I've had that experience. Yeah.
Well,
I think I feel very fortunate in that. Because I remember when I got the job, my course leader said, oh, of course you did. I didn't doubt it. And I was like, well, had it been a job.
Oh, you froze then.
Sorry. Can you see me now?
Yeah, it froze then. All I heard was if it'd been a job opportunity.
So that was my internet. Sorry about that. Is it still recording?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Had it been a job opportunity, I am so sorry.
It's okay.
A job opportunity for people who weren't trans or non-binary, then I would have been up against more competition. But my course leader kind of went, yeah, but you still have the right skill set. You still have that availability to work the job, and you still, because they need more than a therapist in this job. They need somebody to do training sessions and things. But what was I going to say? But yeah, so actually I think because of my age and because of the kind of circles that I'm in and the kind of what I'm doing professionally, like even outside of this job, I've been putting lots of building blocks in place to get me to that place now.
Yeah.
But I know that we're in an age now at the moment where non-queer people are going, oh gosh, queer input is really important. And I'm taking advantage of that, I suppose. And,
Yeah.
yeah.
What you said.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. Okay, so this is the last question now. Oh, do you feel like you finished the last question?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the last question, obviously, I'm going to advise a trigger warning because I'm going to be asking you about. Can you tell me about a negative experience as being part of the LGBTQIA community?
Well, I suppose because, as you probably know too, once you come out, you never stop coming out. So because I kind of came out big, I came out when I was a teenager as somebody who wasn't straight, and then in my early 30s I came out as somebody who wasn't cisgender. So I've had two big coming out experiences, and actually the first time it wasn't that bad. I don't think I experienced any homophobic bullying or anything. I know when I was in school there was a bit of weirdness. I had these two friends who were also gay, and we used to hang out, and they all used to make fun of us a little bit. But then that didn't really get to me. I'm quite good. I've been able to kind of avoid being bullied just because I don't give it the energy it needs. But I suppose the most negative thing that's been happening to me recently is because, again, I get misgendered all the time. So that's a negative experience, but it's kind of, I'm quite forgiving when it comes to things like that because I know it's quite a new thing. And when people look at me, they won't, they'll see a female and they'll just say she, her. But, as time goes on, it gets a bit tiring, especially when it's people I've known for a while now, kind of thing. So it's not, this is the thing, it's not one big negative experience. It's just a really small, I don't know, Chinese torture kind of thing where it's just a drip of water, but it continues, that drip of water continues.
Yeah.
So I suppose it's more about microaggressions rather than anything else. But in the workplace, there's only one experience. I've had a lot of jobs. I've had about 50 different jobs in my life, maybe a bit more than that. But a few years ago, I was working in a library, and I remember one person was like, so do you call so you've got a female partner, haven't you? I was like, yeah. So it was like, do you call her your wife? I was like, yeah, because we're married. And she laughed. She was like, you're so crazy. I was so confused. But that's the only kind of ignorance I've received, really. So I've considered myself quite lucky, and so when it comes to negative experiences, I generally, all in all, I think I've been very proactive in finding my tribe, finding my community, and putting myself in places where I'm safe. And I think I seem to have the kind of body or face what people don't want to mess with. I don't know what it is, but I don't think people like messing with me.
The hardness.
Well, apparently I'm soft as a lovely little hamster or something. I think it's my size and my stature, but yeah. I used to play rugby. You should see me in a scrum cap and a gum guard. I was quite scary then.
Everyone want to mess with you.
It's funny because I used to be in the front row, so I used to tackle people and then apologise. Are you okay? Right, okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Is there anything else you want to add at the end of this, or?
No, I think. Well, no, I say no, but I'm going to talk. I do feel like I've had a fairly fortunate life so far when it comes to my sexual and gender identity. And it's a bit annoying sometimes because, I had friends who used to get, back in the 90s, I had friends who got chucked out by their parents for being gay, for instance. And I had people who got bullied in work, had people who got beaten up on the way home from being out and things. And so I consider myself incredibly fortunate and lucky. But there's something in me that's like, do you know the It Gets Better movement?
No, I've not heard of that.
So you might, yeah, It Gets Better is it was a hashtag thing a few years ago, and it was basically this this couple who wanted to show that things do get better. If you're experiencing something negative about your sexuality, then it does get better.
Yeah.
So I suppose I'm an example of that. But yeah, that's that. I suppose it does, it does get better.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Rhi, for partaking in my art project.
You're welcome. Did you have any other questions, or?
No, that was it. That's all my questions.
Okay.
Stop recording a sec.